I'm hard on equipment, like really hard on equipment. So naturally, when I was sent this wireless derailleur, I couldn't think of any better way to run it through its paces than taking it to the most rough and rugged terrain that I could think of. In this video, we're going to give you an honest review of the Wheeltop EDS OX YQ derailleur. We're headed to Wyoming and Montana to test its limits. And before we get too far into this video, I want to clarify one thing. This is not an ad. We aren't getting paid to talk about this product. With that being said, we do love seeing alternative options out there in the market. And we can really appreciate an underdog business that might be coming into the bike industry and shaking things up a little bit. Our goal with this video is to provide you with honest, unbiased feedback through real-world testing. I haven't installed the new derailleur on my bike just yet, but we need to get that taken care of before we head out. I'm really looking forward to swapping out the SRAM GX derailleur that's currently on my bike, so let's crack it open and see what we've got. Before we get it on the bike, let's throw this thing on a scale and see what kind of weight we're working with here. The Wheeltop website says this derailleur comes in at 400 grams. However, when we threw it on our scale, we got 398 grams. The remote weighs 68 grams, bringing the grand total for this entire package to 466 grams. Something that's pretty cool and unexpected to me is that it works right out of the box. We didn't have to do anything other than pull it out, and we already get a sense of the shifting dynamics that we can expect before we even throw this thing on the bike. To be honest with you, I could probably play with this all day, but we should probably get to work. Not bad for right out of the box. I've got the derailleur on, and I guess at this point, there's no going back now. Alright, in my opinion, one of the biggest selling points with this derailleur is that they say it works with any cassette. On my setup, I have the 93mm or the long cage for this derailleur. This one is compatible with 10 to 52 speed cassettes. On my bike, for example, I have the SRAM Eagle setup. Available with 3 different cage lengths, Wheeltop claims that this derailleur is compatible with 3 to 14 speed cassettes. And I don't even think 14 speed cassettes exist yet, but maybe think about this as an investment for future technology. To finalize the setup on this Wheeltop derailleur, it does require an app. However, it was super simple to download, sign up, and sign in. Another thing that really caught me by surprise with this product was after I signed into my account and selected connect new device, it just automatically connected. And honestly, this leads me to believe that everything should work fine and pretty seamlessly with this derailleur. So let's start testing. Apparently the derailleur can go to sleep, so I just had to like wake it up. That's a new one for me. Sleeping derailleurs? Okay. I'm not gonna lie, dude. I'm like seriously impressed right now. The app is pretty easy to use, pretty intuitive, and yeah, it's not skipping. We're gonna shift through the range one more time. We're at the easiest gear right now. We're gonna shift down into the hardest and then all the way back up one more time. But I just ran it through its initial calibration and it seems to be shifting pretty great. So yeah, we'll see. Weird. So we were going through our initial calibration, and for some reason it kind of like freaked out, and it's telling me that we're doing like 4 speeds right now. So I'm gonna see if I can like reset this real quick, and then we'll start over. I'm a little nervous to venture into the backcountry with this setup, but no turning back now. I'm liking that. Okay, now that we've got everything running smoothly, I've got to say I'm feeling a little bit better than I just was, knowing that I'm getting ready to head out into the remote backcountry of Wyoming and Montana. I think we've got the issue that we just ran into pretty sorted out. Looks like it's a pretty common thing when I Googled it. So we're gonna keep that in the back of our mind while we're going out into the backcountry, just in case we run into it again, so we can fix it on the fly. With all that being said and my peace of mind restored, there's only one thing left to do. It's time to head north and start testing this thing. So here we are. And to be fully transparent with you, I'm a little nervous about this because we are in a very remote area where grizzly bears roam freely, which is why we're carrying bear spray. But I've got this brand new wireless derailleur on my bike. What could go wrong? Now, I'm not gonna lie to you, we rode the last 2 days and I really wanted to give this thing a good shakedown before we got out here in the absolute middle of nowhere on this rugged trail and potentially be in a situation where I have a broken derailleur and we're trying to get out of here, get away from the potential of bears. So we did shakedown rides and the derailleur performed absolutely incredibly. The only issues I had were operator error. I had it set up for 13 speeds, so it was trying to shift into a 13th cog in the back, and all I had to do was go into the app and change that, and we're running good now. So the first thing we're going to talk about is how this derailleur does when it comes to shifting. So how does it perform when it comes to climbing? Well, in my experience so far, we've climbed about 4,000 feet over the past 2 days, and being able to shift down and grab a gear is immediate. And in fact, if you hold the button down, it'll shift all the way through the range really quickly. As long as you're pedaling, you're not going to have any issues. So I really enjoy that feature on this thing, especially on steep climbs. I was able to just hammer down, and the gear that I was the most worried about shifting into was that big Eagle gear in the back, and it did that with no problems. So when it comes to the climbing test, I think this derailleur definitely passes. Next thing we're going to talk about is shifting when getting up to speed or sprinting. Now, so far, I haven't had any issues when I'm putting a ton of power into the bike and shifting up basically from the Eagle gear all the way into the top of the bike. I've done a few tests in the driveway. I've done a few tests on the trail, going through some chunky stuff. And while under power, I've yet to hit a snag where the chain is popping, making a bad noise, or wanting to jump off the cassette in the rear. And last but not least is descending or traversing technical sections of the trail that are rocky and rugged. This thing has done a great job so far. I've been really enjoying it. It's not super loud. The clutch system in this thing works really, really well, which is kind of surprising to me. So far in this video, I think I've said it, a number of times, but this derailleur is certainly exceeding my expectations, which is a really cool thing, especially in a zone like this, and it puts my mind at a little bit more ease. But let's keep riding and see what this thing is capable of. I believe we have a few water crossings and things like that, so we'll check in with you there. Thankfully, the manufacturer says that this derailleur is waterproof with a rating of IP67, but what exactly does that mean? This indicates that the derailleur is good submerged in up to 3 feet of water for up to 30 minutes and that the internals are completely protected from dust. Now, over the last few days, we've ridden through rain and mud and marsh, and I've got to say, I haven't had any electronic issues with the derailleur. In fact, it's been gunked up and it's still shifting great. So mechanically and electronically, this derailleur seems sound even in inclement weather or when riding through water. So after 5 big days, Out in the backcountry on rough and rugged trails, the glaring question is, how much battery remains on the derailleur? When it comes to wireless derailleurs, I think all of our biggest concern is probably the battery life, and rightfully so. When I was coming out on these rides, that was the thing that certainly concerned me the most, which is why I brought a wireless USB battery charger in my pack. The reason I've brought that USB charger with me is because this derailleur does not have a removable battery. So after over 125 miles ridden, over 6,000 feet climbed, the question remains, how much battery life does this derailleur still have left? Well, it's probably going to surprise you as much as it surprises me. This derailleur still says it has 80% battery life with over 15,000 shifts remaining. Now, the manufacturer claims that the built-in battery in this derailleur has over 800 charge cycles. With over 20,000 shifts per charge, that means we could potentially have 16 million shifts on the lowest end of this derailleur's lifespan. There's nothing that's more alarming than descending technical, chunky sections of trail when it sounds like your bike is beginning to rattle to pieces. Thankfully, this system utilizes multi-level dampening, which makes for a smoother, quieter ride when it comes to descending through those tough technical sections. Something that's worth noting is that I do notice a little bit more noise coming from this wireless system than a traditional cabled derailleur. The reason for that is because there is not a cable pulling tension on the derailleur, preventing it from slapping around. However, that extra sound is not unique to this derailleur. In fact, Chase has a wireless SRAM GX setup on his bike, which produces similar results. Okay, let's talk about what I believe are the pros and cons of this derailleur. We're going to kick this off by discussing what I believe are the pros, starting with the fact that this thing is super easy to install and the setup was very straightforward. And not to mention, the build quality is quite impressive. A huge pro in my eyes is the battery life. Although the battery is built in and not removable, I believe that's what gives this derailleur such a long battery life. Shift quality is great, it's fast, crisp, and consistent, and in my opinion, the best thing is there's one less cable to manage on the bike. Another huge one for me is that it works with any cassette ranging from 3 to 14 speeds. And the last pro in my eyes is that you can travel through the entire range of the cassette by simply just holding down the shifter button. Now moving on to the cons. The first con is there is no lockout on the derailleur cage, which makes it a little more difficult to work on the bike, but not impossible. The next con is that the app on the phone to control the derailleur could benefit from a little bit of user experience love. The translations are a little bit off, but with a little bit of patience, it's pretty straightforward to navigate. And the last cons in my eyes involve the battery. The first one, again, is not unique to this particular derailleur. The battery does add a little bit of weight. And since the battery is not removable, if you don't have a way to plug it in your garage, well, you're kind of hosed. Thankfully, we live in a time where portable USB battery banks are fairly inexpensive, so if you are to pick one of these up, that is a great solution. So, does it make riding noticeably better? Well, no. But if you're a gear nerd like me, something like this is pretty cool to have on your bike, and one less cable routing to the derailleur does clean the bike up pretty nicely. All in all, I've got to say, this Wheeltop EDS OX YQ derailleur has certainly impressed me. And initially, I wasn't sure that I was going to even put it on or leave it on my bike. But I'm sold on it, and it isn't going anywhere. In fact, I also have a wireless wheel top setup for my gravel bike that I'll be installing soon, so stay tuned for a video on that one as well. I know this technology is nothing new, but I would love to hear what you think about it down in the comments. Love them or hate them. If you enjoyed this video, cruise down and hit that like button so other people just like you can see it as well. If you want to see more content just like this, make sure you hit the subscribe button and don't forget to ring the notification bell. As always, thank you guys so much for riding with me, and we'll catch you on the next one. Later.